welcome everybody to getting your students started with Canva. So I'm excited to be working with you all today, just with how we can really get our students collaborating and creating. So let's kick off today and use the chat to share a little bit on what do you do right now that currently fosters collaboration in your classroom or district? What are some of your favorite ways to get kids working together? Oh, before we move forward, I do want to make sure everybody is registered and signed in and uses that code too. And then as you get to it, feel free to just add any ways that you get students collaborating, and feel free to add that in at any point. So even if I keep moving forward, feel free to add these in. Yeah, I've used Nearpod quite a bit as a teacher. It is a great way to get kids collaborating and creating. Padlet's another great one too. Lots of great tools. And even be thinking of some of your favorite instructional strategies to get kids interacting too, because one thing we like to think about is how do we get our kids collaborating using all the technology that you're sharing too. Yeah, online assignments. Okay, I'm going to keep rolling here. So if we haven't met before, I think I've met most of you today here, but I am your Canva Learning Consultant. I'm Liz Bostwick, based out of New York, and I'm just honored to be with you. You guys can connect with me anytime on social media. Always happy to share out the amazing work you and your school district are doing. And just keep in mind that I'm always happy to help in any way. And I come with 16 years of classroom experience and then worked as a technology integration specialist and have done my own consulting and then also work with Canva. So of course, anytime you share out on social media, remember to use those hashtags, because sometimes that allows us to, if you don't tag us and we see it on the hashtag, and we can still share out. So you can see that we've had lots of different people sharing out different things that they've done in the classroom or students have done. So it's been really neat to just see all that educators are doing across the country, across the world, really. So in this session today, we are going to be diving into, we'll just do a brief review on what is Canva for Education. We'll look at how you can build your library. We'll explore what students can do, and there will be opportunities for hands-on learning throughout, and also tips and tricks for getting students started. Feel free to ask questions at any point. So Canva for Education, if anybody here today is new, we just want you to know that you do have fully customizable templates that are pre-created and they are at your fingertips. So you can always start from scratch, but you can always choose any templates that are designed for you and customize them to your liking, or your students can as well. And so Canva for Education is free. And at Canva, we do believe that education is a human right. And we really aspire to just be able to empower the world to design and create. And one thing that we know is true, that with Canva, students are really leveraging skills and learning skills that transcend the K-12 landscape. And so it's really neat to be able to see students within Canva, not just utilizing the skills that we want to see them use, but also developing those skills such as collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and more. So whenever we're leveraging technology, we're always looking at not just about the technology itself, but how are we using it instructionally to deepen engagement and really get the kids to want to learn and create and show what they know. So at Canva, we do try to focus on some of these standards here, that these categories that are pulled from ISTE, if you're familiar. So we do hone in on how do we encourage our students as creative communicators? How are we global collaborators? How do we empower learning? And as educators, how are we innovative designers of instruction for our students? And so with anything that we're doing here today, we're also thinking of that 21st century learning. How are we getting our kids, as I mentioned before, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity? We've been hearing these for years and years, right? And we know that these are things teachers are aware of, but always keeping that in the forefront. It's really easy to be like, oh, this is a cool new tech tool, or hey, I want to use this. It's really neat. But always be thinking of the pedagogy and the instruction that goes hand in hand with it, so that we really are deepening learning, because at the end of the day, that's our goal, is to really get kids not just to learn, but to feel engaged and want to continue learning actively and independently too. So today in this session, we will be focusing on how to get students started. But in order to do so, we're going to look at how you as educators can first build your forever library so that you have easy resources to be able to create and then, of course, share with students. So we can create our forever library in 4 easy steps. First, we can go through Canva and create folders. We can always import existing resources. And I'll come back to this video in just a minute, but we can also give old resources new life. And of course, we can collaborate with colleagues. So I want to walk you through that just a little bit. So we're going to back up for just a second. And I'm just going to walk you through. So when we're here at our home page for Canva, is just a brief review. I always want to draw people's attention to the fact that you can always go to your search bar and of course select the Create tab to get creating any design or to search for what you want to create. But one thing that we want to be aware of as teachers is that we do have this Projects tab. And in our Projects tab, this is where anything we design will live. We can always toggle through our projects, any of them, specific ones that are ours or anything shared with us. So what we just hit on is that you can always come up here to add a new folder. You can select a new folder. You can name it just as I did any of these down here, and then you can add new resources. And so adding new resources is very simple. So if I look at this one here for Because of Winn-Dixie, I can always go here, I can select upload, and I can upload from anything on my desktop, anything from my OneDrive, and I can always go right from the app. So I can connect my Google Drive or OneDrive and upload right to Canva. The benefit of doing that is that all of your resources are here. So if you already have a pre-created resource, you can bring it into Canva and update it and make changes. And then of course you can always edit any PDF as well. So that video I will leave in the slide deck so you can review it. It's really something that I hit on live and leave it as a resource for later on. So everything I share today, you will receive. And I know before, like one of my resources that I sent, I know the links weren't working at one point. That should be resolved by now. So if that ever happens, let me know. Nothing should ever expire. So it might take us a couple days to troubleshoot, but just keep us posted. So we definitely recommend that teachers are always creating a library of resources in here, because what's nice is that then if you're ever in here from this step of creating folders, importing your resources, one thing that's really nice, and I'll just do a quick little demo, is that on your left sidebar, you can add your projects folder. And so remember, we said that we created our projects, and I can go to my folders, and I can go down, right down, if I wanted to this Because of Winn-Dixie. I have some resources saved. And let's say I've got my presentation here, and I'm going to share this with my students in class. And one thing that we can do right from Canva with our Forever Library is that I can always go to my folders and I can bring in any resource that I want. So what you just saw me do here is, because I already had a resource saved for Because of Winn-Dixie, which is a poster creation, I was able to add this from my projects tab right into my current design. And now from here, if I want to just highlight everything, I can now move everything to the side. And then as the teacher, I can add my title and any information. So having our resources of any kind as a teacher built and saved in Canva is going to save you a lot of time as you're designing. So remember that anything you do in Canva, you don't have to start from scratch. You can use what is pre-existing. So that's kind of the first step to getting students started, because a lot of times we get our students started with the resources that we have on hand. Okay, so some of the things that our students can be doing in Canva, if you've used Canva a little bit now, you're going to know that the possibilities are really just endless. Like there are so many different possibilities, from video reflections to group projects, exit tickets, you name it, your students can create it. So one thing that we know to be true, and we know this as educators especially, is that collaboration is extremely important to the success of any organization. So whether it's Canva or whether it's a school district, we know that collaboration is important for people to work together. So we're always going to be looking at how do we get one another to collaborate. And so when we're looking at students as collaborators, some of the things that they can collaborate on in Canva are any of these activities from icebreakers. And we're going to be testing some of this out a little bit ourselves tonight. But we can also do check-ins with our students. So we can go through, we can share check-ins and have our students dive right in to be able to share. And then of course, there's also group brainstorm opportunities. So this is really great so that students you can do a mind map, KWL, brainstorming, design thinking. And so it's a really nice way where your classes, as you mentioned, like Padlet earlier or Jamboard, you can use Canva in a very similar manner. And of course, design everything that goes with anything that you're doing in the classroom. There's also lots of group contracts available in Canva, so students can work right through those collaboratively as well. And of course, in-class group work. So be thinking of that whenever we're creating and collaborating in Canva. When we're thinking of group work, it can be anything from book designs to collaborative writing, scientific findings, storyboards. There's tons of awesome comic strips and more. And of course, just more group projects in the way that you can create documentary style videos, project reflections, and more. Okay, so we're going to dive into some collaborative activities here. Make sure everybody's there. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share with you guys a template right now. So for collaboration, so it'll be this one here. So what we're going to do in this session, and if you've been in my previous sessions, you know that I'll share out a link that we'll collaborate in. Today, we're going to be in getting students started with Canva. And once I share this link with you with editing access, we're all going to join onto this page right here. And what we're going to do is open up our elements. And if you select the elements, you can come right down to the whiteboard graphics. So let me backtrack that just real quick. So I'm going to share the link to edit. You're going to click elements. And as soon as you come in, if you just scroll down, there are sticky notes. So if you want to type something in, feel free to type in a thought, or you can just select one of these whiteboard graphics. So I have this open to whiteboard mode, which is going to allow us to kind of collaborate in here. And what we're going to do is vote for our favorite way to just get kids collaborating. Is it a check-in? Is it contracts? Is it group work project or group projects or in-class group work? So group projects might be a little bit different because they might be something ongoing that they're also collaborating with outside of school too. So I'll go ahead and share that. Anyone with the link can edit. So within this activity, we're also modeling right now how you can have students, how you can share a link with them. This could be a whiteboard, but you could also choose to share this as a presentation slide, and everybody can come right in and collaborate on this. So we're on the second one. Now, if you don't see, if your screen isn't showing like all of the designs at the bottom, like mine is, there is a little caret at the bottom of the page that you can toggle between. Otherwise, your page will scroll, and I think in whiteboard mode, it looks kind of difficult to navigate. But if you're open the way I am, it should be fine. And if you haven't used Canva to collaborate with students, that's understandable. It's still relatively new with your district. So let's just be thinking of what would be a way that I would like to start getting students to collaborate. And so we have these whiteboard graphics on the side. If anybody's having trouble finding them, I'm just going to generate a few along the edge so that you can always grab one, or you could duplicate one. So right now we're just kind of getting a feel for moving around the whiteboard. How can we add some whiteboard graphics? If you want to elaborate on anything, you can feel free to go grab a sticky note. All you have to do is select your elements. And because we're in whiteboard mode, any elements that pertain to the whiteboard will generate on the side. And if anybody has a question, please feel free to ask too. So be thinking of, like right now, I have this set up so that we're just kind of having a collaborative activity on this, but be just thinking about how you could create a similar template like this with your students and get them using these whiteboard graphics to be able to voice their thoughts or provide feedback or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to dive back into the presentation. Feel free to leave this tab open though, because we will return to it. Okay, we're going to dive into some things that students can also create in Canva. Okay, so in Canva, there are lots of things that students can create. And we know that our students are natural creators. I have 2 kids myself. One is now in college and one is a sophomore in high school. But from the time they were little, they loved building with blocks. They loved playing with trains and designing train tracks. And then they loved building with Legos. So when we think about it, creating is very much a human side of all of us. Like we typically enjoy creating. So when we take creation to the classroom, we allow our students to really show their voice and their creative side. And so there's so many different ways that students can be creating and showing what they know in Canva. Some of the favorites that we use, and we just kind of explored some of this too on how they can collaborate, but to go deeper, we know that students can create posters in Canva. And so this is great if you're doing anything with author's purpose, right? So anything, or even if they're going to engage in activism of some kind, even if it's just information. And of course, we have infographics in Canva. So this is a nice way that kids can share data, they can demonstrate a process. And remember that even images and videos can be embedded right in these infographics. And they can collaborate on anything that you see that we're talking about today. So even it doesn't have to be a whole class, of course, like anything, they could just be partnering up and creating a presentation together like you see here. So it's a great way for them to pitch an idea. It's an end of the unit project idea. Talking presentations are great. And it's so nice that they can even be interactive. So if students wanted to share a presentation with peers, they can embed links and other resources so that their peers can learn from them. And then, of course, within Canva, there is a built-in video editor. It's one of my favorite video editors. We've used it for all kinds of things, from my son's graduation to recently a funeral in the family, and we were able to put together just beautiful video collages. So it's just amazing how many different opportunities you have built right in Canva and at your fingertips that you can use in many ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore some templates. And so I'm going to share actually a different link. And in this one, you're going to explore posters, an infographic presentation, or video template. So all you're going to do is be thinking about which of these would you want to use for students? And we're just going to collaborate on that. And I'm going to have you just choose one of those, select a template, and go ahead and explore with that for just a bit. Because then we'll be sharing out on that. So here, and one thing I'm going to show you guys too, this is kind of cool. So you can see this is a template that I have for you. And a minute ago, when I shared the collaborative template, I did give everybody editing access. What I'm going to do this time is I'm actually going to set this as a website. And so this is not a public website. It's going to go to you. There is the ability now that you can actually publish. You can go to websites on Canva. I can hit on that if you'd like to before we go. It is new. There's some little pieces that I think are still being worked out in the school district side because we wanted them to be able to be private and password protected. However, if you're looking to create a choice board with students, you can actually create a presentation. So this is a presentation slide. And if I come up to me here to my share button, and if I select website, it's going to give me a couple different ways that I want this, however I want it to go. I'm just going to click presentation. And when I click open, you will see that these all should be linked appropriately. So we've got posters. So when you click here, it's going to work just like a choice board would for students. This is a really nice way if you have students and you're saying, hey, we're all doing a project on the human footprint, and you're either going to create a poster, infographic, a presentation, or video on it. You get to choose how you want to show what you know. This is a great way to kind of narrow that down so that they're not just on Canva searching a bazillion things, right? Because there are so many options out there. So this is a nice way that you can help just navigate students. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do now is just copy this link, and I'm going to share this with you guys in the chat. And you're welcome to use it. Now, if you're somebody and you're like, oh, my Canva tab's open and you want to go ahead and search one of these, feel free. I just did it so that it also serves as an example. So what we're going to do is you guys are going to select one of these, and we're going to take about 5 minutes for you to play with one of these templates and just be thinking about how might you use one of these with your students. So not a poster teachers are creating or an infographic you're creating for students, but which of these might you get students creating in? So let's do just some exploration time. And I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock, and then we'll go from there. So we'll be coming back together in just 30 seconds. So hopefully you were able to find a template and got to do some customization to it. Okay. So I know you were likely exploring one of these templates that we see here, whether it's a poster or an infographic, presentation, or video. And so what we're going to do is dive back into that collaborative document that I had. And I do want to do a quick little demo of this. I can't recall if I've done this with you guys before or not. But just to give you an idea of one thing that we can do. So if you guys can be on my screen for just a second, but let's say this is what I created right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my share button, and I'm going to make sure yours is going to automatically say only you can access. But I just want you to go to anyone with link can view. And if you just click this purple button, you should be able to come right over and paste this just like I'm doing. And it should give you just a view only of the template you explored. So whether you did something with the template or not, what we're just practicing right now is also sharing links. So a lot of our sessions are interwoven with information about Canva, but then we want you to have that hands-on piece, whether it's opening the whiteboard and finding the elements that go with the whiteboarding or sharing a link. So these are all good things that we can practice because it's going to help us just know a little bit better how we can also support students. So I'll go through that just one more time, but whatever design you have, and if you're like, oh, I just, looked at a couple designs, feel free to just pick anything, anything that you think is interesting, and just click that share. And again, we're just going to take anyone with the link, change this to can view, and we are not going to grab anything up in the browser. We're just going to click this purple button of the link, and then we'll paste it into our collaborative document. And that'll just give a little bit of a view only, and that is on page 3 of our document. And if anybody has a question, feel free to ask. This is a nice way for people to see, okay, what are people interested in? What are you looking at? And one thing we want people to walk away from with Canva is that Canva is more than social media graphics or designing activities for students, but that is a great tool where students can be designing and creating and showing what they know. It's a fabulous tool to get kids engaged and just being able to demonstrate their understanding. And I think you'll see learning take off and just students being more actively involved in what they're doing in the classroom. I think some of us might be sharing on the other page, which is fine too. So feel free to continue to share here. I'm going to bounce back to my slides. If anybody's having trouble sharing, let me know. I'll do my best to walk you through again, but you can always check back on the recording. So it is on page 3 where we're dropping those links. And so again, if you're not seeing those slides at the bottom, just click that there's like a little carrot or like an arrow, whatever you want to call it. And you can click that and it's going to either show the pages down below so you don't have to scroll, which is helpful. All right, I'm going to jump back into the presentation aspect. And we're going to discuss just some ways that you can get your students started quite literally with Canva. So what we did today is we looked at, to begin with, how you can build a forever library. Remember, you can import from your Google Drive or OneDrive. You can upload any PDF and customize it. But by creating folders in Canva, it's going to allow you to easily share resources with students. And it's also going to allow you to easily customize anything you already have so that you're not starting from scratch. You're just taking things you already own. The next thing we did is we discussed how we can encourage students to collaborate through different resources. And then we dove into 4 different categories for student creation. So now if there's anybody that's like, okay, that's great, but how do we get our students to learn Canva? First off, I will say that students are incredibly in tune with learning technology. I've worked with second graders in person quite a bit. We did not give much explicit. I did a very brief demo, probably 5 minutes. And then I began asking, what do you think this tab does? What do you think this tab does? And wouldn't you know, they picked up very quickly. And before you knew it, it was neat because students were also saying, hey, I just found where to get the backgrounds. And it was nice because we empowered the students. Well, why don't you come up front? Why don't you show your friends? Where did you find that? It was a great way to, build the culture of the classroom where we're empowering students. And what I love is that oftentimes the students who are finding those features in Canva that other kids might not see right away are sometimes the students that aren't always as confident when it comes to maybe reading or math fluency. So finding something that lets them show their strength really makes a difference in the classroom. So some of the things that you can do though, if you're ever thinking, well, my students I want them to learn more intentionally, understand too that we do have lots of learn and play activities built for students. So these are different activities that kids can learn and play. There's also Canva tutorials for students. So they can actually go through and complete a student course. You can see this one gives like a little example of 0 out of 10 completed. So we do have lots of courses and tutorials so that it's easy for kids. If you wanted them to go through a few things just to kind of set the tone, you can do that. One thing that I always recommend that, especially with your younger students, like 5th grade and younger, it's nice to have this as a center, something where you're not as a teacher, you're not having to run around to everybody in the room to answer a question about any new form of technology, but instead let the students collaborate with each other, let them work in a small group. And then that way they're learning together and you can still run your own small groups if you're working with students. And then of course, you can always choose to assign a template to students. So if you choose a template in here and you want them to work individually, I'm actually going to bounce out of that real quick before we go back to that. But keep in mind that if you go and you want your students to have a template, and I'm going to give an example going back to this one here. So let's say this is a poster and I want my students to use this exact poster. I'm going to say you can customize things. But what I can do is, let's say, I'm just going to keep using this example today. I think I've been stuck on it for a little while. So anyway, we'll make this a little bit smaller so it fits. Okay. Now, a couple of tips and tricks for teachers here. You can see that I can move this. So if I share this with my students, one thing that you'll want to know is that they can also move it. But what you can do, if you want them to edit everything, you feel free. I have shared templates with students before in a classroom, and not one looked like the template we had started with. So a couple things just to note, that if you're wondering if there's things you want to keep there, you can go through and lock things. If you notice what I just did, I'm going to do that one more time. I clicked on my text, or I can click on the shape. I'm hitting those 3 buttons and you're going to see there's a lock box. Now, by locking this, it's going to lock the position and placement. But notice here, there's like a little pen icon that comes up. What that means is that I can still edit the text. So if you might want that shape to stay here, but you want the students to change out their own title, you could do that. However, if I click that lock a second time, it's now going to, don't want to say permanently lock, because it's not going to move, like it will be like that. But if there are times that they might be able to unlock themselves, but also if you explain like things that are locked, I want to stay there, it's going to help them along the way. So just be knowing that you can do that. You can lock things into place. That also helps me. I do a lot of locking if I'm layering things. For example, this text is over top of this box. So sometimes I will just group that together and just do a quick lock. Now I can still edit oops, I can't. I can still edit. I can still edit any of the information, but it helps me so that if I'm going to drag things around or move anything, it's going to keep it in place. So those are a couple little tips in there. And now if I wanted to come up here to my share button, if I want to share a template just with students, I can come down here to the more option and I can grab a template link. So the template link is what will force a copy. So if I come up here to my browser and now paste in that template link, you'll see that if the teacher just assigned this to me, I'm going to see now I have a template created. And when I click it, it's going to open to my own template. So this is how we can force a copy for students. And so everybody can have their own individual copy. So that template link is going to be a big one. If you have a specific template and you're saying you can customize it, but I want you to start with this, that's an option that you have. So that's one thing that you can do. And this will go a little bit more. Well, I think I'll leave that as a resource as well with that part. Let's dive into just some reflection opportunities. And I'm just noticing in the chat, sorry, I'm just looking there. So to paste a link to view, sometimes it might depend on the device that you're on too. So if you go up, so if I set this to anyone can view and copy, so what you're doing is you're clicking the share button is the first step, and then selecting anyone with the link, and then selecting can view. And then you should just be able to click that purple button. And then if I right click now with my mouse, I'm going to have the paste option, or you can do Control V on your keyboard. So if not, I would just recommend rewatching this section of the video at some point, and then you're going to be able to just kind of follow along. And it may depend on the device that you're on at the moment. Okay, so we'll dive back in here and let's go into some sharing at this point, sharing and reflections. We'll jump back into, whoops, did I close out of that? Oh no, here it is. So we'll go into page 4 and we're just going to be sharing some takeaways that you might have. Now, if you're coming into the whiteboard and things look really tiny, just remember that you can zoom in. At the very bottom of your screen, there is like a little scale that you can like choose to increase the size or decrease, and you can always use the mouse pad of your computer.
I didn't get that. Could you?
And the other thing is, if anybody is, so what we're doing, we're in that collaboration document and we're going back to page 4. I'm going to resend it just in case anybody had, it's possible that some of us may have closed out of it too. So I'm just going to reshare that. And we're going to join on page 4. And I did put some sticky notes. You're also going to find them under your Elements tab. So any takeaways today for getting students started with Canva? And this is a great time because we do have time if there are questions. This is a great time. I love in this session to be able to give examples or little demos. Anything that you guys have of burning questions of like, how do I do this with students? This is a great time for it. And if anybody's having trouble toggling the pages, let me know. So I have a couple of responses in here that we love Canva. You've learned to share a document with students. And with our small group, if you want to unmute and you just have a question, I want to make sure this session is useful for you. So feel free to unmute and just ask questions, or if there's something you want me to review or demonstrate, more than happy to help. So some of the important things from this session, in addition to your library, student collaboration, and student creation, is just remembering that on that sidebar, when you're new, when your Canva account is new, you're not going to have a lot of tabs, but just keep in mind that at the very bottom, you do have more apps. And so you can add a lot of the things that you see on mine. So projects is one that I use all of the time. I love that I can be designing in Canva and I can open my projects folder and pull resources from elements or anything. So keep that in mind too. Even any of these elements that you find, if you are creating and you come back around and you're like, oh, I would love to use this for a different activity, remember that you can save these to folders. So I even add elements that I stumble upon that I might not be using in the moment, but I might use them for another project. I add them to a folder and just name that folder. So Canva has a lot of organization methods that help us to be efficient. And so the projects, being able to bring in anything from your folders is really helpful. All right, so we're going to go back into the presentation. And again, if there's anybody that has questions, this is the time to ask questions. All right, so anytime you guys have questions, feel free to reach out. We love to share resources and we want to make sure that you and your students feel supported. So just keep in mind that in moving forward with Canva, that we do have lots of tutorials at your fingertips. So we have tutorials for teachers, but of course, as we mentioned earlier, there's tutorials and online activities for students. So you can really get the students creating too. We also have a Facebook community, so we invite you to visit that Facebook community and really just connect with other educators. The Facebook community is just a really good page where they do run quite a few challenges. They ask questions, they share resources, and I love that educators from all around the world are sharing templates and resources that they created. So you may not readily find them on Canva, but there's things other teachers are creating that you might say, hey, this is perfect for my class. And of course, we have the Canva District Hub, so you can always access anything you need pertaining to your learning management system, videos, FAQs, and of course, there is a support link in there too. So if you ever need support. So I'm your Canva Learning Consultant, and then you do also have a district education advocate who helps with any of the setup and back end and everything like that. And of course, we always love to hear your feedback. So I thank you guys for being here. We